I want to start this morning by reading a Mishnah that comes from the section of Mishnayot about Rosh Hashanah, but really kind of reflect on the Jewish calendar as a whole. And for those of you who were in Adult Ed this past Tuesday night, it will sound familiar. There are 4 days in the year that serve as the new year.
Yeah.
First of Nisan is the new year for kings and festivals. The first of Elul is the new year for tithing animals. The first of Tishrei is the new year for years. And the first of Shvat, according to Beit Hillel, the 15th of the month, is the new year for trees. Well, aren't the Jewish people lucky? Just in case the 8 crazy nights of Hanukkah weren't enough celebrating for us, we can throw in 4 separate New Year's celebrations on our calendars. The favorite wording of which from that Mishnah, for me at least, is the New Year for years. Because really, what else would a New Year be celebrating? But as we see from the Mishnah, there are so many other occasions to mark, right? There's New Years that have tax implications. There's New Years that have ritual implications. But the reason that I'm bringing this up right now is twofold. First of all, I want the excuse one more time to focus us in on Tu B'Shvat, which we'll be celebrating this week, and to plug the Seder we'll be having on Tuesday evening to celebrate Tu B'Shvat. But a little bit more relevantly, parts of this Mishnah come out of this morning's Parshat. Chapter 12, verse 2 in Exodus reads, HaChodesh hazeh lachem rosh chodashim rishonhu lachem lechodshei hashana. This month shall mark for you the beginning of the months. It shall be the first month of the year for you. It's easy to overlook this passage. Amidst the miraculous events of the plagues and the Exodus, it doesn't stand out. And in fact, since it serves as the preface to the description of the Paschal offering, you could argue that it is maybe the intro to the first boring passage in the entire Torah, genealogy lists aside. But it's actually a very monumental verse. This verse is regarded as the first actual mitzvah commanded in the Torah, as opposed to, say, circumcision, which was commanded to Abraham as an individual and handed down afterwards. This is the first commandment given directly to the nation and given directly to the nation as a whole. And I think you could argue that it is just the tip of the iceberg of the most consequential and impactful set of Jewish laws from antiquity to today. Our calendar really comes to define our lives as Jews. As proof, I'm going to make a statement and look around the Zoom boxes to see what all your reactions are. We are almost exactly to the day 1 month away from Purim and 2 months away from the first Seder. And I see my mom perhaps hamming it up a little bit, but I know that we all have kind of a visceral reaction to these reminders of these events that so define our ritual and communal lives. Beyond just those visceral responses, I think our calendar adds to our cultural uniqueness. Think of all the times you've had to explain to friends and family that somehow the Jewish day begins at night, or that our holidays come early or come late, but somehow never come exactly on time. The rhythm of the calendar certainly permeates throughout our year. Thinking of how closely tied fall is for us to the high holidays and Sukkot, Hanukkah to the dark days of winter, and Pesach, Passover, to spring, that embodies what intercalation really is. And in case you're not sure, what intercalation is by the fancy word definition. It's the term for how we tie our lunar calendar to the solar calendar through a complex system of addition of leap years that makes sure that we don't have any seasonal drift. But we don't need the dictionary definition. We can feel the definition in our lives as Jews. And the roots of that come back to this Exodus story. Everything from here on out is nation building, and the calendar and its significance is no exception. After all, what could be a more powerful message of escaping slavery than controlling your own time and observing your own holidays? This was at the core of Moses' request to Pharaoh all along, to let the people take a 3-day vacation to worship God in the way that they wanted to. And I wonder how might the story have been different if Pharaoh had deigned to allow this seemingly simple request. The calendar also reestablishes and redefines our nation's relationship with God. Even the language of this verse of the first mitzvah points to the human partnership in these divine processes. This day shall mark for you. As a midrash spells out, this was God handing over the reins of management to the people. And according to Rabbi Joseph Soloveitchik, in matters of the calendar, matters that govern our communal Jewish practice, the earthly court decrees, and the Holy One of Blessed Name complies. One of the most famous contemporary questions about the Jewish calendar is, why do we need 2 days, at least outside the land of Israel? Why are our Passover, Shavuot, and Sukkot celebrations marked by 2 days at the beginning and 2 days at the end? The answer really comes down to us as humans being in charge, and ultimately the fact that we're error prone. When it came to observing the new moon and figuring out festival dates, a rabbinic court needed to be the certifying voice, And that message and that news needed to travel. To play it safe and to make sure we were doing things right, the nation doubled down and figured that if we observed 2 days, at least one would have to be correct. In giving us as humans the privilege to manage our own affairs, we take on a tremendous amount of responsibility and ultimately partnership with God. And we're also given a very constant reminder that the world is not perfect, that we need to figure out ways to deal with our own systems and the errors that they will inevitably produce. And we need to learn how to exist in that space of imperfection and not just count on a divine God to fix it all for us or to give us direct messages of how to enact all of these different laws that we're going to be getting in the next 3.5 books of the Torah.